Hello everyone. I've been absent for a while to take care of my health and help the people that I know. Part of that is what you see here on the screen. We'll get to that in a minute. First, I want to say that I am aware of the patch coming within the next couple hours or tomorrow. This stuff that you're seeing, it's all structured. I am able to change anything in here fairly easy depending on how the patch goes. I just want to get this out there and talk about it now. I'll update as needed. Second thing I want to cover while I am talking about all this is anything that you see on these documents is based on a numbers level. These numbers are taken from Drifter, TheExclusiveAce, or COD community testers. So with that all out of the way, let's just go ahead and dive right into it. I created this Google document to help the people I know get better at Call of Duty. Call of Duty does not do a good job of balancing guns in general, with maybe an exception of like one title, and they're also not transparent. You can't really tell what a gun will do for you just based on a bunch of bars. There's a lot of hidden numbers and things like that. In order to at least correct some of it, I have taken all of the guns that I felt were successful in a given scenario or their category. Then I went through and looked at their stats, put them together, slapped a build together, and then threw that into this document. So let's go ahead and just kind of go through this so you can see where I'm coming from and how that's applied. Obviously the EBR-14 is going to be in here as it is a long-range weapon. This thing at stock has a damage drop-off at about 80 meters. The 22-inch barrel will bring that up probably right around to 90. That means that this rifle can hit 2-shot kills to the torso at a very long distance. This is an overall better weapon than the Dragunov because it has a bit more mobility and rate of fire. In short, the EBR-14 is probably the most friendly long-range gun out there. The FAL is kind of like a backup to that. I do recognize that the EBR-14 isn't for everyone, or it's limited to certain maps like Ground Wars. Really, I think that's where the EBR-14 shines, is Ground Wars, whereas FAL can kind of do Ground Wars, but it can handle much shorter maps a little bit better than the EBR-14. That's just because it has a 500 RPM. You can even see that here in the document, that if I know the numbers, they are going to be there. So this will obviously give you more chances to actually hit a target than the EBR-14. The problem is the FAL is shorter ranged. That's another thing too that you're going to notice with this document. I'm going by the range of each weapon based on their builds. Notice these are all full builds. I have each attachment listed and their stats by the time that build is done. So let's keep going. S87. This is one of, I think, 3 weapons that people call trash. I can tell you from a numbers level that it isn't trash. The biggest problem with the S87 and weapons like it is the slow rate of fire. All it takes is one complete bot to not understand that you have to land your shots with slow RPM weapons. If you do not land your shots, that gives the higher RPM weapons a chance to catch up. I think another thing that deters people from realizing how good the S87 is in the fact that starting out, the level grind for it is just abysmal. Its recoil is ridiculous, and the iron sights are just terrible. However, once you start getting to this build right here, it becomes a monster, and That's pretty obvious to see here. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information on the S87, so you'll see that I just did what I could. I know that it's 3 shots to kill at 46 meters at stock barrel, which is very high, by the way, because the FAL is 2 shots to kill at 50 meters with its XRK mark, well, over 50 meters with its XRK marksman barrel. So that means the S87 at stock is going to be near FAL range. Moving on, M4 is of course going to be in here because it's what all the pros use. We'll talk about that more towards the end, but you can see that I've changed the build a little bit. I know that the pros use sometimes the M16 barrel, sometimes the Corvus custom. So I recognized that out of the 2 barrel options, the Corvus custom is a better barrel because realistically you're not going to be trying to hit at S87 or FAL range with the M4. So Corvus barrel is perfectly fine due to the fact that it only reduces your movement speed by 3%. The M16 reduces it by 4%. So you essentially get 1% more movement speed, and the ADS time between the Corvus and the M16 barrel is double. So that means if you go from the Corvus to the M16 barrel, you will slow down your ADS time by a lot. Compensators in there, as well as an optic. I've noticed that the pros will not run optics. They will run on iron sights. I think that's a mistake for when you're trying to shoot at long range, because it's easier to notice your mistakes in terms of like if your bullets are missing or you're not leading the target properly when you're using an optic. It's just much easier to see. I've kept the no stock and stippled grip, which is what the pros do. Compensators there because I feel that's another mistake of pros. Now, I understand that pros are very high skilled players, but even a highly skilled player can make mistakes. I think Compensator is a must with the M4 when you're running no stock. The no stock causes it to lose recoil control. Compensator is essentially allowing you the ability to shoot at a distance a lot better. Compensator is the strongest recoil attachment for its category. We'll explain more of that a bit later. Moving on. This is where you'll start seeing some oddities. We've went from marksman rifles to LMG and then assault rifle, but now we're going into submachine guns. There's a reason for this. I discovered that the Bizon with its 8.7-inch polygonal barrel has similar ranges to an M4, but it has a faster time to kill. You'll even see that reflected in the document. It's right here. You'll see that the Bizon is 659 RPM, so yes, it's slower than the M4, but look at the time to kill. 182 milliseconds. Look at the M4s, it's 216. So the Bizon is not only near M4 range, but it's going to kill a lot better, and on top of that, it has 64 rounds in the magazine. You can make a lot of mistakes with the Bizon. Now, of course, the downfall to all this is the Bizon does have a lot of recoil. Unfortunately, by the time that you add everything together, there's not room for Compensator on this build, so you're just going to have to crouch or something, because that's really all you can do in this scenario. I guess you could try to run without an optic, and then replace the optic with a Compensator, but that's just going to make it a little bit more difficult to see what you're doing at range. So I don't know how I feel about that. This is another topic we'll cover a bit later. Moving on to the Uzi. This is another weapon that people think is trash. It really isn't. Just like the Bizon, the Uzi is a long-range submachine gun. Between the Bizon and Uzi, they are the longest range submachine guns in the game. The Bizon is more range than the Uzi. However, the Uzi is a lot easier to handle, and Uzi has a very tight bullet spray pattern, unlike the Bizon, which is a straight line going all the way up. So with the Uzi, you don't really have to worry about getting a compensator or anything. Once you get that 13.1-inch barrel in there, the recoil is more than manageable. So you have plenty of room to do optics, stipple grip, a laser, and even sleight of hand. You'll find that in most of my builds I'm running sleight of hand, and that's because of the reload time. I recognize that in order to keep these weapons competitive with other weapons, examples the M4, because look, the M4 is 1.39 seconds reload base. A lot of these SMGs are going to be well over 1.5. So in order to get these down below M4 level, I had to use sleight of hand. Look at the major difference with it. The PP-19 Bizon is 1.15 second reload. Look at the Uzi, 1.02 seconds. That's how fast that these are going to reload for you. So, but again, everything's listed. You can read that for yourself. I'll link it in the description. Moving on to AUG. Now, AUG is yet another weapon that people don't feel is good, but yet again, it is, because the AUG at its 407mm lightweight barrel range can destroy most weapons at that given range, which is about the stock range of a Ram 7. I have it somewhere in the notes down below. I think the difference between an AUG 9mm with 407mm lightweight barrel and the Ram 7 is about 2 or 3 meters, I think. We'll find out when I go through my notes if we happen to do that. But yeah, so the problem with the AUG is that it takes too many attachments for it to be good. That's why I have it listed as 9mm. Yes, you could probably throw in 5.56 by dropping one of these, but then you're going to be losing out somewhere. So I would say out of this particular list, the only thing that could be changed is the reflex. Just like the Bizon, if you think you can run without reflex, I would say slap a compensator on it maybe, so you're able to hit a little bit easier at ranges. Or to trigger the AUG's crazy damage multiplier for the head. Another thing we'll go over in a little bit. Finally, we're getting to the bottom of the list. Here's AK-47. Now, the AK-47 is actually another hidden gem of the COD world. Because look at its reload base. 1.17 seconds. I don't even need to run the numbers for sleight of hand. There's no reason to put it on here. It's already a 1.17 second reload. In addition to that, the AK-47 does have an upper chest multiplier, which will allow it to hit at ranges greater than the ranges listed for its 8.1-inch barrel. Now, because you can't guarantee that the multiplier is being triggered all the time, I have the AK towards the bottom of the document because it's going to be shorter range than an AUG. So that's actually why it's here. If you're triggering the multiplier, it's going to be able to outrange the AUG and possibly match the Bizon and Uzi. Of course, the AK won't be good until you get it to this build. The AK is naturally slow on aim down sight time. The absolute lowest I could get it to go, based on the numbers provided, was 224.985 milliseconds. For reference, the M4 is 200 milliseconds on that build. So it's going to be an entire 24 milliseconds slower. Unfortunately, that's just the best you can do with it. MP5, there's two builds in here, in large part due to the range difference between the 10mm and the 9mm. The topmost build is running 10mm, so it's obviously going to have a bit more range than some of the others builds that you may be able to do with the MP5. The 9mm is at the bottom because it's going to be used exclusively for short range. Knowing that this MP5 is being used for range, I decided to put a reflex sight on there. A compensator, stipple grip, and sleight of hand. It's a pretty straightforward build. It's an MP5 build designed to work exclusively with aim down sight. it will work just fine in that build. The short range version, I didn't feel a need for reflex sight because its optimal range is 12.5 meters. Sadly, that's how short range the MP5 is. Yes, it can destroy players quickly, but only at certain ranges. Knowing that you will be trying to get within 12.5 meters, I put everything in there possible to ensure that it's able to handle that close range combat for either ADS or hipfire. That's why the Merc 4 grip is there, F-Tac collapsible stock, stipple grip tape, and the laser plus sleight of hand. Because again, sleight of hand is so OP. So F-Tac gives you more movement. Merc 4 grip helps with recoil control and sleight of hand or hipfire. 1 milliwatt laser helps with hipfire alongside Merc 4 grip. So between these two, you should have a very tight hipfire. If you have to switch to ADS though, your collapsible stock is going to help you with your ADS time. So there's that. M19, final gun on this build. So my reason for listing this pistol is because the M19 is 100% movement speed. That means it's the exact same movement speed as a knife. So this is actually a much better alternative than the knife, because if you can get the M19 upgraded, it can get up to 420 RPM and a respectable time to kill, which I don't think you really should be trying to count it, in large part because it's 3 shots to kill. But I went ahead and just put it there because I knew what the number was. But yeah, it takes 3 shots to kill. It has very good range for pistol once you get up to the XRK V extended. Of course, anything else in here is just to help with the build further. Knowing that you can fire pistols from ladders, it has a 1 milliwatt laser in there to help you with that hip fire / unaimed build when going up ladders or just peeking corners. Now, of course, if you're doing a different build than what I have listed here, you can of course trade the 1 milliwatt laser for something else like Compensator if you're going to be using it as a main weapon or something like that. But overall, its build is perfectly fine the way it is. Okay, so now that we've covered the entire build, let's just quickly go over the Compensator and things like that. I see I'm not really going to have too much time to do the notes like I was originally thinking. So, TheExclusiveAce did a recording on recoil attachments. Based on his finding, most weapons benefit at most from Compensator. It's the single strongest attachment to control climbing recoil. So that's the recoil that's going to cause your gun to go up. Muzzle brake is the strongest for the recoil going left to right. So if the build can afford it, and it's a build that absolutely needs a Compensator, then Compensator is going to be your best friend. There's going to be very few times where you'll want to use a muzzle brake. Ram 7 is probably the only one I could think of that would absolutely need a muzzle brake. But again, that depends on player preference because the Ram 7 is a recoil pattern that goes up and left. So if you can control the left pattern, then you just have to hold down, essentially. It's weird. Now, the last thing I want to cover besides the Compensator is you'll notice that I have different optics in here. They are there for a reason. Chrononcy 480 is going to be on all of the topmost range builds. It's a 3.5 times optic. That does not lower your ADS speed much. If you try to use, let's just say that 4 times flip hybrid thing, a sniper scope or any of that, it will increase your ADS time to very high levels. Essentially, the Chrononcy 480 Pro optic affects your ADS speed as much as a reflex sight. So essentially, it's a 3.5 times reflex. This is why I only run Cronin C40 Pro Optics on these builds. Now, for the builds that aren't really going for long range, I give players the option to do PBX Holo 7 or or another equivalent, assuming that gun doesn't have it, or the GI Mini Reflex. There's a difference between holo sights and the reflexes. Holo sights have more zoom than the reflex sights. So essentially, holo sights are an in-between. They're going to be more than the reflex sight, but less than the Cronin. That's essentially how you have to view it. Out of the holo sights I'm aware of, PBX Holo 7 seems to be the one with the best field of vision. In terms of that, it's not going to really clog up your screen, and you can see just fine outside of the optic when you're zoomed in. For the AK, its equivalent is APX5, I think. I was not able to find the PBX in the list for AK-47, so I'm not sure if I missed it or it's just simply not there. But APX5 would be what the AK-47 can use if you want to use that instead of the reflex sight. Of course, for MP5 and M19, they're not concerned with long range, so you shouldn't need anything more than a GI Mini Reflex. Okay, so now that we've explained this, let's just quickly go over this. You'll find all of these Google slides linked here at the very top. AR, SMG, and useful information. So, you'll notice in here that I have taken screen caps from TheExclusiveAce channel, and I've essentially mashed them into here so that you can look at them as you need to. You'll notice that each gun has their multiplier listed, so for example, M4A1 is a headshot multiplier, and that's the only multiplier it has. You'll find recoil pattern, and the list goes on. You'll see it's for every gun. There's the AK-47, there's the recoil pattern when it's using the 8.1 inch compact. Notice that all of these are specific to the builds. So FN foul, you'll see that that's right there. And sure enough, there's the damage multiplier. And here's the recoil pattern with the XRK Marksman. I've done that for the submachine guns as well. That list will be a bit longer than this one because, well, SMGs just simply rule in this game. The only time that you ever want to use an AR, as far as I can tell, is Ground Wars. But even then, you're going to get picked off by marksman rifles and snipers. And then real quickly, this just goes over the random information that I think is helpful. So you'll find field upgrades here, for example. You'll find a screen cap from, yet again, TheExclusiveAce's videos to show you where to use stopping power. You'll find the entire list of recoil attachments here. You'll notice the muzzle brake says recoil stabilization, whereas Compensator says recoil control. So that's how you're able to tell which one's which. Recoil stabilization is left to right, recoil control is climbing. Then you'll see that this is how I'm able to acquire the numbers for each build. Obviously this requires an explanation, so all I'm doing is just listing it there. It's pretty easy for you to tell that red means bad, white means neutral, green means good, so I don't see a need to explain the math behind this. It's more or less there for me to be able to grab it, so if I have to change a build, then I can just quickly move to this slide, find that information I need, and then do the math. But it can still serve as a good indicator as to what's good and what's bad for you, right? So like there, operator foregrip is bad. You can see neutral, good, neutral, good. And then down here you'll find monolithic suppressor. Again, from TheExclusiveAce channel, you'll find this lists everything for you. You'll notice ADS speed plus run frame is the same thing you're seeing over here. There's a math equation behind that. This is showing you shotguns and, well, I guess I should say just the Model 680 and how much of a difference there is between attachments. This one was taken from Driftor's channel. But yeah, you can see there's a difference there. Then I took a picture from E-Rock's channel to show you the specific modifications that I believe are core components of doing a Model 680 should you go that far. It's not listed in my build because I don't see it as being successful. There's too few situations where it works. Granted, it works better than most other shotguns, in the game right now, but it's still not consistent. So you can see that these are the 3 attachments that I feel are the core for making it work. I do not recommend running no stock on it. Recoil control is important so that you can actually make full use of that 20 range one-shot kill, because that's essentially what you can do with this. But yeah, there you have it. That's this entire document in a nutshell. We're on 25 minutes, so I'm going to end there, and I'm going to move over to a different recording. But thanks for listening.